I paid off my brother's crippling debt and found out he'd used the money to buy the house our parents secretly promised me. They say you shouldn't lend money to family unless you're ready to never see it again. I learned that the hard way. The morning my brother called me, his voice was shaking. Not with fear, not exactly, but with something close. Desperation dressed in pride. You could hear it in the way he hesitated before every word, like he was choking them down just to get through the conversation. Jack, man, I need help. I remember staring at the phone, coffee cooling in my hand, heart already sinking. Because I knew that tone. Knew it too well. It wasn't the first time I'd bailed out Ryan, but it was the first time he sounded like he might actually drown. How bad? I asked, voice flat. A pause. Then he exhaled, shaky, like he'd just stepped into a confessional. I owe 62 grand, he said. If I don't pay it by the end of the month, they're coming for the truck, the shop, everything. That was all he said. No sob story. No excuses. Just the cold weight of reality dropped into my lap like a dying animal. I should have said no. God, I knew I should have. But the second I heard they're coming, I pictured our dad's old repair shop, the rusted Chevy sign, the smell of oil that never left my hoodie no matter how many times I washed it. That place was our inheritance before we even understood what the word meant. And Ryan? He was Dad's pick. Always had been. I was the firstborn, sure. The one who made straight A's, who left town for college, who tried to do everything right. But Ryan stayed. Took the night shifts. Held a wrench with the same calloused grip Dad had. He was the golden son who got grease under his nails and knew how to make a carburetor purr. So yeah, I sent him the money. No questions. No contracts. Just a wire transfer and a tight, bitter knot in my gut that I tried to ignore. Because I told myself I wasn't doing it for Ryan. I was doing it for Dad. For the shop. For legacy. But the truth? I just didn't want to be the guy who stood back while our father's life's work went up in smoke. 2 weeks later, I drove down from Boston to check in on him. Surprise visit. The garage looked fine. No tow trucks. No padlocks. No signs of foreclosure. I parked across the street and just watched. A warm breeze whipped past. I saw him through the bay door, laughing with some guy over an engine block, tossing a rag onto the workbench like he didn't have a care in the damn world. And that's when the first crack hit. Not because he looked happy, but because he looked unbothered. Not like a man crawling out from under 60 grand of debt. More like a guy who just upgraded his life and hadn't looked back. Later that night, over beers at Mom's, she still lived in the same peeling blue house we grew up in. I asked him straight. So the loan. It worked? He shrugged, casual. Got it handled. I waited. Nothing. You mean I handled it? That made him smirk. One of those sideways, slippery smiles that never quite reached his eyes. You helped? Yeah, he said, sipping his beer. But I put in the hours, too. It wasn't just the cash. Something in me flinched. Then Mom came in with a bowl of chili, and the conversation swerved. It wasn't until 3 months later that I found out the truth. I got a call from Aunt Marlene. She lives 2 streets over from Mom, and she's got this way of pretending she accidentally spills secrets. Guess who bought the old Wallace house? She said, chipper as hell. My stomach dropped. That house, the yellow ranch style with the wide porch and the oak tree in the yard, was supposed to be mine. Dad told me that when I was 17, drunk on scotch and cinnamon the night, I got my acceptance letter to Columbia. This'll be yours someday, Jack, he slurred, clapping me on the back. You're the only one who could ever make that place feel like home. I never forgot that. Even after he died, I held on to that promise like it was carved in stone. And now, Ryan owned it. I laughed. Not a real laugh. One of those empty, stunned little exhales that tastes like blood and betrayal. No kidding, I said. How'd he swing that? There was a pause. You don't know? Marlene asked, voice dipping into something softer. I thought. Well, never mind. No, Mar. I pressed, jaw tight. Tell me. He bought it outright. No mortgage. Cash deal. Closed last week. I didn't even hear the rest. All I saw was that transfer screen. My money. My future. My house. Bought out from under me by my own brother. The same one who cried broke and begged me to save him from financial ruin. The same one who promised he just needed a lifeline. And suddenly, everything made sense. The way he laughed that day in the garage. The smirk over beers. The way Mom never once mentioned the house again, like it had quietly vanished from the family legacy. I hung up the phone and sat there in my apartment, staring at the ceiling until my knuckles went white. And in that moment, I realized something I never wanted to believe. My brother didn't just lie to me. He stole from me. And my parents? They helped him do it. When I was a kid, my mom used to say, "The devil never shows up with horns. He shows up holding your hand, calling you family." Back then, I thought it was just some old Southern saying she'd picked up from her grandmother. A warning about outsiders, maybe. But now I knew exactly what it meant. Because I had handed $62,000 to the devil, and his name was Ryan. The day after I found out about the house, I drove straight to the shop. Didn't call, didn't text, just showed up at 9:13 a.m. in front of the garage I used to think we'd run together someday. Ryan was there, elbow deep in the engine of a '97 Mustang, music blaring, head bobbing to some classic rock station like nothing in the world could touch him. I stepped into the bay, and he barely looked up. "Jack, look what the wind dragged in," he called out, wiping his hands on a rag. I didn't return the smile, didn't crack a joke, just stood there, dead still. "We need to talk," I said. He raised an eyebrow, tossed the rag onto the bench. "All right, shoot. You bought the Wallace house." That froze him. Not visibly, not dramatically, just a tiny pause. A fraction of a second where the mask slipped. But I caught it. "So," he said, grabbing a socket wrench. "It was up for sale. I made an offer." "With what money, Ryan?" I asked. "You told me you were drowning." He didn't answer, just started tightening something under the hood with a little too much force. "You said they were coming for the shop," I continued, stepping closer. "You cried on the phone, man. Begged me." He looked up then, eyes dark, jaw tight. "I was drowning," he said. "But I figured it out." "No," I snapped. "I figured it out. I paid your way out. And you used that money to buy my house." Ryan slammed the hood shut with a clang that echoed through the garage. "Oh, come on," he said, laughing bitterly. "Your house? Since when was that your house?" "Since Dad promised it to me." He scoffed. Dad promised a lot of things when he was drinking. That hit like a punch to the ribs. Because he wasn't wrong. Our dad was generous with dreams after a few too many. But that night, the night he gave me the deed in words, felt real. Felt different. "He meant it," I said quietly. "You know he did." Ryan leaned against the car, arms crossed. "You left, Jack. You ran off to Boston. Got your degree. Made your life. You didn't want any of this." I blinked. "That's not true." He shook his head. "You left me with all of it. The mess, the shop, Mom. I stayed. I earned it." "You lied to me," I said, voice rising. "You let me bail you out and used that money to steal the one thing I was holding on to. You knew what that house meant to me." "Yeah," he said, stepping forward, voice low and cold. "And you knew what it meant to Mom. She always wanted me in that house. Said I was the one who'd keep the family close." I felt my stomach twist. "You're telling me Mom was in on this?" He shrugged. "Not in those words. But she didn't stop me." The shop felt like it was spinning. All these years, I thought I was the one keeping the family together, sending money, checking in, remembering birthdays. But they'd all moved on. Without me. Around me. "You used me," I said. "Both of you." Ryan didn't flinch. I did what I had to do. He turned back toward the Mustang like we were done. Like he could just wipe his hands and walk away clean. I walked out before I could do something I'd regret. But the rage didn't go away. It followed me down the street, into the car, all the way back to Boston, burning in my chest like fire in a locked room. That night, I opened an old box of Dad's papers, ones I took after the funeral. Inside was a manila envelope I hadn't touched in years. And at the very bottom, buried under receipts and handwritten notes, was a letter, folded, yellowing, addressed to me. "Jack, for when you come back home." I stared at it, hands shaking. Then I opened it, and what I read changed everything. The letter wasn't long, but it hit like a sledgehammer. Asterisk, "Jack, I don't know if you'll ever want this place, but if you do, it's yours. The deed's in the fireproof box in the garage, under the floorboard behind the tool chest. If your brother ever tells you otherwise, remind him I said it with a clear head. Dad asterisk." That was it. No sweet sign-off. No apology for all the chaos he left behind. Just a single, undeniable truth. He meant the Wallace house for me. The same house Ryan just stole out from under me. I drove back to our hometown before sunrise the next day. No sleep. No coffee. Just raw adrenaline and betrayal pushing me 80 miles an hour down back roads I hadn't seen since high school. I pulled up to the shop just after dawn, before Ryan could open. The place was quiet, shuttered, the morning fog hanging low like a warning. I parked, walked around back, and found the door to the garage still unlocked. Same loose lock Dad never bothered to fix. The toolbox was exactly where I remembered it. Same oil stains. Same faded Ford sticker on the side. I pushed it aside, pried up the warped floorboard, and there it was. The fireproof box. I cracked it open, and inside was a small, clear folder. Deed. Title. Signature. Witness. My name. No one else's. Asterisk, Jack Lawrence. Owner. Asterisk. My knees gave out. I sat there on the cold concrete, the papers trembling in my hands. All this time, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. Dad had meant what he said. He just never told Mom. Never told Ryan. Or maybe he did. Maybe Ryan knew. I called a lawyer that same morning. One who handled estate disputes. I explained everything. The letter. The deed. The purchase Ryan made using my money. The guy was sharp. Asked all the right questions. Do you have proof the money you gave him was for a loan? Text messages. Bank transfers. One email thread. He called it a bailout. And the property? I have the original deed. Signed by my father. Never revoked. He paused for a beat, then said the words that set something in motion inside me. Jack, that house is legally yours. I didn't respond. Not at first. Because part of me still wanted to believe this could be fixed with a conversation. That somehow, Ryan didn't know. That maybe Mom forgot. But I already knew better. I went to the house that evening. Ryan had moved in fast. Porch furniture already out. A new grill. Wind chimes. Like he was building a life in someone else's skin. I knocked. No answer. So I rang the bell. Once. Twice. Eventually, he opened the door. Hair wet. T-shirt inside out. Like he'd just rolled out of a woman's bed. Wow, he muttered. You just keep popping up. We need to talk. He sighed, stepped outside, closed the door behind him. If this is about the house again, it is. I pulled out the deed. His eyes narrowed. What the hell is that? Proof that you stole something that never belonged to you. He snatched the paper from my hand, scanned it. This can't be right. It is. Found it in the garage, where Dad left it, along with a letter. I handed him a copy of that too. His face went pale. For the first time, I saw a panic cut through his cockiness. He never told me, Ryan said, voice cracking. Doesn't matter. You let me pay your debts. Then use that money to steal the one thing I had left. I didn't know, he whispered. I nodded slowly. Maybe, but now you do. He looked up at me. So what? You want me out? No, I said, stepping closer. I want you to give me back what's mine. Or I take it. Legally. Publicly. And you lose everything. He didn't answer. Just stood there, stunned, watching the only person who ever bailed him out finally draw a line. I turned and walked away. And I swear I could feel the ground shift beneath both our feet. I didn't hear from Ryan for 3 days. Not a text. Not a call. Not even some snide comment through Mom. The silence should have felt like progress. Like victory. But it didn't. It felt like the calm before something much worse. And I was right. Because on the 4th morning, I got a letter. Certified mail. Neatly typed. Delivered to my apartment in Boston. From his lawyer. Ryan was disputing the deed. Claiming the property had been abandoned. That Dad never filed a proper transfer. That the document I had was informal. Invalid. That I had coerced the money out of him under false pretenses. It was pure fiction. But it was war. I drove back down that same day. Parked in front of Mom's house this time. Not the shop. Not the Wallace place. Her porch light was on even though it was broad daylight. She always forgot to turn it off. I rang the bell. She opened the door slower than usual. Jack, she said, surprised. What are you doing here? We need to talk. She stepped aside, let me in. Same dusty furniture. Same TV tray tucked behind the recliner. The living room smelled like pine sol and denial. Did you know? I asked. She hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. Know what? About the deed. That Dad left the house to me. She folded her arms. He never filed anything, Jack. That's not how these things work. I pulled out the letter. The one from Dad. She glanced at it. Didn't read it. Just shook her head. He was confused at the end. No, he wasn't. This was written before he got sick. Her eyes flickered. Then, sharper, Ryan was here. He stayed. He took care of things. You mean he took care of you? I said. While I was wiring money from 4 states away. That hit. Her jaw tensed. You were always the distant one, Jack. I was the one you pushed away. She looked away, lips pressed tight. A silence stretched between us like barbed wire. Finally, I said, did you help him? Did you tell him to buy the house? She didn't answer. That was the answer. I stood up, walked to the door. He's going to lose this case, I said. You both are. Jack, she called after me. But I was already outside. I called my lawyer from the driveway. Push forward, I told him. Hard, because if Ryan wanted to make this a fight, I was done pulling punches. I was ready to burn it all down to get back what was mine. And by the end of the week, the whole town would know exactly what he'd done. Small towns don't need truth to pick a side. All they need is a whisper and the sin of conflict. By Monday, everyone knew. Not the details, just enough to be dangerous. That Jack Lawrence was suing his brother. That the golden boy wasn't so golden anymore. That something ugly was rotting under the fresh coat of paint Ryan had slapped on his new front porch. I didn't start the fire. I just stopped hiding the smoke. Ryan called me that afternoon. No hello. No throat clearing. You just had to go public? No, Ryan, I said. You did that the moment you cashed my help and called it yours. A beat of silence. Then, bitter, you always thought you were better than me. No, I said. I thought we were on the same side. I was wrong. Click. That night, my phone rang again. A number I didn't recognize. Jack Lawrence. Speaking. This is Richard Hammond. I handled your father's estate work. We haven't met formally, but he left something with me. Said you'd come looking one day. I blinked, pacing to the window. What kind of something? A letter. Notarized. I suggest you come see it. The next morning, I stood in Mr. Hammond's office, walls lined with dusty file boxes and framed certifications. He pulled a manila folder from the drawer like it held holy scripture. This was signed 2 months before his diagnosis, he said. Your dad was clear. Said the Wallace house was always yours. He handed me the letter. Asterisk, to whom it may concern. This letter affirms my full intent to leave the Wallace property to my son, Jack Lawrence. It is a personal and deliberate inheritance. I ask that this be respected and not challenged by anyone who did not carry the weight Jack did. Sincerely, Walter Lawrence. Asterisk. Signed. Witnessed. Dated. It felt like a ghost reaching through time just to say, I see you. I sent a scan to my attorney the second I walked out the door. That evening, I heard the knock. I didn't even need to check the peephole. Ryan. His shoulders slumped, hoodie half-zipped, eyes rimmed red. I was gonna lose everything, he said. The shop, the truck, everything. When you sent the money, I thought maybe I could fix it. You didn't fix anything, I said. You buried the damage under someone else's name. I didn't know about the letter. Or the deed. But you knew it wasn't yours. He didn't argue. I'll sign it back, he said. You get the house. You drop the suit. That's fair, right? Is that why you're here? I asked. To negotiate what was never yours to bargain with. He didn't answer. Just stood there, soaked in regret that came a little too late. I'm not doing this to punish you, I said. I'm doing it so I can look at myself in the mirror. Ryan nodded, eyes wet now. I get it. And maybe, for once, he did. I closed the door. Gently. But this time, it stayed shut. There's a strange kind of silence that comes after a storm. Not peace, exactly. More like debris settling in your chest. After Ryan left, I sat in the dark with the deed in one hand and Dad's letter in the other, wondering what the hell it was all supposed to mean now. I had the house. I had the truth. And yet, I didn't feel like I'd won anything. Just reclaimed something that should have never been taken. I hadn't spoken to Mom since our last fight. She hadn't reached out. Neither had Ryan. But I knew it wasn't over. Not really. That Friday, I drove back down to the Wallace house. My house. The porch light was still on. Old habits die hard, I guess. I unlocked the door with the key Ryan left in my mailbox. The place was clean. Too clean. Like someone trying to erase themselves without leaving a mess. The furniture was gone. Walls bare. Just a few screws in the drywall where he'd hung his pride. I walked through the empty rooms like a ghost haunting his own memory. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like Dad clearing his throat. Every whiff of cedar from the back closet carried a flicker of childhood. I found myself in the living room, staring out the same window I used to peek through on rainy days, imagining who I'd grow up to be. Turns out, I was still figuring that out. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Jack. It was Mom. Hey, I said, careful. Can we talk? I didn't answer right away. Please, she added. We met at a diner just off Main Street. Neutral ground. Somewhere with too many windows and not enough privacy. She ordered tea. I didn't touch mine. I heard Ryan gave it back, she said. He didn't give it back. He admitted it never belonged to him. She flinched, just barely. I didn't know about the letter, she said. I swear. But you still helped him. I helped him survive, she said quietly. He was drowning. So was I. She looked at me then. Really looked, like she was seeing the cracks for the first time. I failed you, she said. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. She reached into her purse, pulled out a worn envelope. I found this last week. It's from your dad. I hadn't opened it. I thought it was just another insurance form. She slid it across the table. Inside was a photograph. Dad. Me. 12 years old. Standing in front of the Wallace house with a toy hammer in my hand. On the back, in Dad's blocky handwriting. For Jack, someday this'll be yours. Build something good. My throat closed. I didn't want it to go this way, Mom said. Neither did I. We sat there in silence. No forgiveness. No grand reunion. Just the quiet recognition that something sacred had been broken. And maybe, if we were lucky, someday we'd learn how to live with the cracks. It took a while to unlock the door without flinching. Not the front door, the one in my head. That part of me that had slammed shut the day Ryan signed the papers and Mom looked the other way. That part that still whispered, they chose him. But every morning, I forced myself to walk through the house. Touch the walls. Feel the silence. Make peace with the echoes. It helped. A little. I found Dad's old toolbox in the garage. Rusted shut, covered in dust. Inside were sockets, screwdrivers, a half-used pack of nails, and a folded receipt for a swing set he never built. For me. I sat on the cement floor and just stared at it for 10 minutes. Then I got up, bought wood, and started building one out back. Not because I needed it, but because I needed to finish something he didn't. The first week was quiet. Second week, I got a knock. Ryan. Again. He held up a six-pack like it was some kind of apology bouquet. I heard you're building something, he said. Yeah. Need a hand. I didn't answer. Just stepped aside. We worked in silence for hours. No music. No small talk. Just the sound of lumber, nails, and a second chance creaking back into shape. At one point, he paused and said, Dad told me he didn't think I could handle that house. I glanced up. He said it was for you. That you saw what it could be, not just what it was. It didn't feel like an apology, but it felt like truth. And maybe that was enough for now. When we finished, we stood side by side looking at the swing set like we were 12 again. He opened a beer. Handed me one. To Dad, he said. To doing it right this time, I replied. We clinked bottles. The sun dipped low behind the trees, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was holding my breath around my brother. Just standing in the backyard of what was finally, truly mine. Some inheritances come with money. Some come with land. Mine came with silence, scars, and the choice to break the cycle. The swing set creaked gently in the breeze. It stood behind the house like a quiet monument to something Dad never finished. Something I did. Mom came by 2 weeks later. No warning. Just showed up with a casserole dish and a look on her face that said this wasn't about food. I figured you might be tired of eating alone, she said. I let her in. We didn't talk much. Just sat on the porch with paper plates and iced tea, listening to the cicadas scream the way they always did in late summer. After a while, she said, I was wrong about a lot of things. I know, I said. She nodded. But I never stopped loving you. I just didn't always know how to show it. I didn't say anything. She didn't press. We watched the sun slip behind the trees in silence. And somehow, that silence said enough. Ryan still came by, now and then. Helped with repairs. Never stayed too long. But every time he left, he'd pat the doorframe and say, take care of it. And I would. Because this house wasn't just lumber and walls anymore. It was memory. It was forgiveness. It was legacy. Not the one handed down, but the one I fought for. And this time, no one could take it from me. I was home, finally and fully.